Long before algorithms decided what we see, before climate anxiety entered daily conversation, and before governments openly debated mass surveillance, British science fiction was already there. These films were not chasing trends, they were warning us. Buried by controversy, poor box office, or simple discomfort, they predicted futures we now live inside. This is not nostalgia, this is prophecy. Number 13, Things to Come, 1936. Released in 1936, Things to Come did something almost unthinkable for its time. It treated the future not as fantasy, but as inevitability. Written by H.G. Wells himself, the film unfolds across decades, charting the collapse of civilization through endless war, followed by the rise of a technocratic world government run by scientists and engineers. What makes this film unsettling today is not its optimism, but its accuracy. The opening act depicts a never-ending global conflict that erupts suddenly and never truly ends. Cities are bombed from the air. Civilian populations become targets. Governments collapse into emergency rule. This was imagined years before the Second World War, before nuclear weapons, before modern aerial warfare. It predicted total war as a permanent condition. The second half of the film introduces a future ruled by experts. Democracy is quietly discarded in favor of efficiency. Scientists become the moral authority. Progress is mandatory. Human emotion is treated as a dangerous flaw. At the time, this was presented as salvation. Today, it feels like a blueprint for technocratic governance, algorithmic decision-making, hope, and policy shaped by data rather than people. The final act centers on space travel as humanity's next step, but even that triumph is framed as controversial. The masses resist progress, they fear change, they sabotage innovation. The film asks a disturbing question that still echoes today. Should humanity be forced to evolve for its own good? In an era of AI governance, technocrats advising governments, and public distrust in institutions, Things to Come feels less like science fiction and more like an early warning system. It predicted endless war, elite control of progress, and a future where humanity debates whether freedom is worth the chaos it creates. Number 12. The Day the Earth Caught Fire, 1961. The Day the Earth Caught Fire opens with a premise so terrifyingly simple, it barely feels fictional anymore. Nuclear testing by global superpowers has shifted the Earth's axis. The planet is heating up. Ice caps are melting, cities are suffocating under unbearable temperatures. Governments scramble to control the narrative, while journalists race to uncover the truth. Released in 1961, this film predicted climate catastrophe decades before climate science entered public discourse. It connects environmental collapse directly to political arrogance. Decisions are made behind closed doors. Information is suppressed. The public is kept calm while the planet burns. What makes this film especially prophetic is its focus on media. The story is told largely through journalists who realize that the end of the world will not arrive with explosions, but with press conferences and carefully worded denials. Nay, the film predicts the modern information war surrounding climate change, the delays, the minimization, the endless debate while conditions worsen. Visually, the film is bleak and restrained. London streets are empty. Newspapers print blacked-out headlines to conserve ink. Heat becomes a silent killer. There are no monsters, no aliens, just consequences. The ending refuses comfort. There is no heroic solution, only a final gamble and a question mark. Will humanity survive its own mistakes? Or has it already waited too long? In an age of rising global temperatures, climate denial, and irreversible environmental damage, The Day the Earth Caught Fire stands as one of the most brutally accurate science fiction films ever made. It did not predict gadgets, it predicted behavior. Number 11. The Mindbenders, 1963. At first glance, the Mindbenders appear small and contained. There are no futuristic cities, no advanced technology, just a laboratory and a tank of water. But what it predicts is far more disturbing than lasers or spaceships. Released in 1963, the film explores sensory deprivation as a tool for psychological manipulation. Scientists place human subjects into isolation tanks to observe the effects of removing external stimuli. What they discover is terrifying. Without sensory input, the mind becomes malleable. Identity fractures, reality dissolves. The film directly anticipates modern discussions around psychological warfare, interrogation techniques, and mental conditioning. Long before the public learned about enhanced interrogation or isolation practices, this film explored how easily the human mind can be broken without physical force. What makes the Mindbenders so effective is its realism. Everything shown feels plausible. The technology exists. The motivations are believable. The danger is subtle. There is no villain monologue, just professionals convinced they are serving progress. The film also predicts ethical collapse in scientific institutions. Researchers cross lines gradually. Each experiment is justified. Each subject is expendable. Responsibility is diluted through bureaucracy. In an era of digital isolation, virtual reality, and algorithmic manipulation of attention, the Mindbenders feels chillingly current. It understood that control does not require violence. It only requires silence and time. Number 10. Fahrenheit 451, 1966. When Fahrenheit 451 was released in 1966, it was marketed as dystopian fantasy. Today it plays like a documentary from the future. Produced in Britain and adapted from Ray Bradbury's novel, the film imagines a society where books are outlawed, independent thought is dangerous, and entertainment exists solely to keep citizens numb. What makes the film prophetic is not the burning of books itself. It is why the books are burned. The government does not fear rebellion. It fears discomfort. Knowledge is banned because it makes people unhappy. Conflicting ideas cause stress. Critical thinking disrupts social harmony. So culture is flattened into endless passive consumption. The film predicts a future where screens replace relationships. Citizens interact with wall-sized televisions that speak directly to them. These programs call viewers family. They simulate intimacy while isolating individuals from one another. The technology may look dated, but the concept mirrors modern algorithm-driven media designed to keep users emotionally engaged and intellectually passive. Firemen in this world are not heroes. They are content moderators. They enforce cultural sameness. They erase dissent. And most chilling of all, they genuinely believe they are helping people live better lives. The protagonist's awakening is not triggered by violence or revolution, but by curiosity. He begins to read, and that act alone becomes a crime. The film understands something modern societies still struggle with. Censorship does not always arrive through force. Sometimes it arrives through comfort. That in an era dominated by short attention spans, outrage cycles, and endless distraction, Fahrenheit 451 predicted a society that would willingly abandon depth in exchange for ease. The future it warned about did not need authoritarian boots. It only needed people to stop asking questions. Number 9. The Bed-Sitting Room, 1969. The Bed-Sitting Room is one of the strangest science fiction films ever made, and that is exactly why it is so accurate. Released in 1969, the film depicts Britain after a nuclear war that lasts only minutes but permanently shatters reality. Civilization does not end in flames. It dissolves into nonsense. Survivors wander through ruins clinging to social rituals that no longer make sense. Language collapses. Authority figures continue giving orders long after their power is gone. Old people transform into objects, literally. The film uses absurdity to predict a psychological truth. After catastrophe, societies do not rebuild logically. They cope irrationally. They invent meaning where none exists. They pretend normalcy can be restored through routine. This film anticipated how trauma reshapes identity. Characters become obsessed with status symbols and outdated hierarchies. Royalty still exists. Class divisions persist. Even as the world collapses, people cling to systems that destroyed them. What makes The Bed-Sitting Room prophetic is its portrayal of post-apocalyptic bureaucracy. Systems continue operating without purpose. Titles remain important even when survival is at stake. The film predicted how institutions outlive their usefulness and become performative rather than functional. In modern disaster scenarios, we see echoes of this everywhere. Paperwork during emergencies, corporate language applied to humanitarian crises, symbolic gestures replacing real solutions. The film is uncomfortable because it suggests humanity's greatest weakness is not violence, but denial. Even after annihilation, people refuse to accept change. They would rather live inside broken systems than imagine something new. What once felt like surreal comedy now feels painfully accurate. The Bed-Sitting Room did not predict how the world would end. It predicted how people would behave afterward. Number 8. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. Few films have been misunderstood as thoroughly as A Clockwork Orange. Upon release in 1971, it was condemned for its violence. But violence was never the point. Control was. Set in a near-future Britain, the film explores a society terrified of chaos and desperate for order. Crime is rampant. The public demands solutions, and the government responds with psychological conditioning designed to eliminate free will. The film predicted the modern obsession with behavioral correction. Instead of addressing root causes, society chooses efficiency. Criminals are not rehabilitated through understanding, they are reprogrammed. What makes the film prophetic is its moral dilemma. Is a person still human if they can no longer choose? The state achieves peace by removing autonomy. Violence disappears. But so does freedom. The conditioning process shown in the film mirrors modern debates around chemical castration, psychological profiling, predictive policing, and algorithmic sentencing. The idea that behavior can be optimized through science without ethical cost. Even more disturbing is how quickly society embraces the solution. There is no meaningful debate. Fear overrides philosophy. The public wants safety at any cost. The film also predicts media sensationalism. Violence becomes spectacle. Moral outrage becomes entertainment. Society feeds on shock while demanding control. A Clockwork Orange understood something deeply uncomfortable. A society afraid of disorder will eventually invite tyranny, not because it is forced, but because it is offered as protection. Number 7. The Omega Man, 1971. When The Omega Man arrived in 1971, audiences saw a genre movie, a lone survivor, a ruined city, a strange cult of survivors lurking in the shadows. What they did not immediately recognize was that this film was quietly predicting the psychological and social consequences of global catastrophe rather than the catastrophe itself. Set in a future where a biological war has wiped out most of humanity, the film imagines a world where science both causes and attempts to cure extinction. The virus is man-made, the countermeasure is experimental. Civilization does not fall to aliens or monsters. It collapses under its own ambition. What makes The Omega Man prophetic is its depiction of post-collapse society. The survivors are not united, they fragment. One group clings to science and progress. The other rejects technology entirely and retreats into ideological purity. This split mirrors modern anxieties around anti-science movements, medical mistrust, and polarized belief systems that harden after crisis. The infected survivors are not mindless monsters. They are organized. They are philosophical. They believe technology is the enemy. Their goal is not domination, but erasure of the old world. They want to destroy remnants of scientific knowledge so the past cannot repeat itself. This is not villainy, it is reaction. The protagonist represents institutional science. He believes humanity can be saved through research and reason, but he is isolated, distrusted, and ultimately expendable. The film understands a brutal truth. In times of mass trauma, expertise becomes a liability. Scientists become scapegoats. Visually, the film predicts empty megacities, abandoned infrastructure, the loneliness of survival in spaces built for millions. Long before pandemic lockdown imagery became real, The Omega Man showed how quickly urban life can vanish. The ending refuses triumph. Survival comes at a cost. Knowledge is passed on, but the world that valued it is gone. The film predicts not just collapse, but the cultural amnesia that follows disaster. In a post-pandemic world grappling with misinformation, scientific distrust, and ideological extremism, The Omega Man feels less like speculative fiction and more like a psychological forecast that arrived decades early. Number 6. Zardoz, 1974. Zardoz is often remembered for its surface absurdity, strange costumes, bizarre imagery, a flying stone head that speaks in riddles. But beneath its eccentric exterior lies one of the most disturbing and accurate predictions British science fiction ever produced. Released in 1974, Zardoz imagines a future where humanity has split into two distinct classes: the brutals, who live in poverty, violence, and ignorance, and the eternals, an elite group that has achieved immortality through advanced technology and genetic control. The film predicts a future of extreme inequality where wealth no longer buys comfort, it buys time. The eternals do not age, do not die, do not fear consequence, and as a result, they lose purpose. What makes Zardoz prophetic is its understanding of elite stagnation. Immortality does not create enlightenment. It creates boredom, emotional decay, moral rot. The ruling class becomes disconnected from humanity itself. The brutals are controlled through myth. A false god delivers weapons and commands obedience. This anticipates modern systems of ideological control, where narratives replace truth and populations are managed through belief rather than force. The Eternals govern invisibly. They claim neutrality. They claim benevolence. but their existence depends on exploitation. Resources flow upward, suffering flows downward. The system is stable precisely because it is unjust. The film also predicts technological immortality as a curse. Without death, life loses urgency. Creativity fades, desire disappears. The elite become obsessed with control because nothing else excites them. In modern discussions about life extension, billionaire survivalism, and digital immortality, Zardoz feels uncomfortably relevant. It asks a question society still avoids. Should everyone live forever, or does meaning require an ending? The film's climax is not violent, yet it is philosophical. The system collapses because it is unsustainable, not because of rebellion, but because it has removed the very conditions that make life worth living. Zardoz predicted a future where inequality is eternal, elites are insulated from consequence, and progress becomes a prison. It may look strange, but its warning is brutally clear. Number 5. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. When The Man Who Fell to Earth was released in 1976, it was marketed as an alien story, but that description misses the point entirely. This is not a film about invasion. It is a film about absorption, about how a system does not need to fight outsiders to defeat them. It only needs to distract them. The story follows an alien who arrives on Earth with advanced knowledge and technology, all hoping to save his dying home planet. He enters human society quietly, legally, through corporations and patents. He plays by the rules, and that is exactly why he fails. What makes this film prophetic is its understanding of how innovation is neutralized by comfort. The alien does not lose because he is attacked. He loses because he is indulged. Wealth isolates him. Media sedates him. Addiction erodes his purpose. The system does not stop him. It absorbs him until he forgets why he came. The film predicted the relationship between technology and capitalism with startling clarity. Breakthroughs do not change the world automatically. They are filtered, delayed, monetized, controlled. Progress becomes a product rather than a solution. Media plays a central role. Endless television images wash over the protagonist. He consumes without understanding. News, violence, advertising, entertainment. The signal never stops. The film predicts information overload long before the digital age. It understands that saturation is more powerful than censorship. The alien's physical deterioration mirrors moral decay. His body weakens as his mission fades. His intelligence is no match for systemic distraction. The film suggests that advanced knowledge means nothing in a culture that rewards numbness. Most disturbing is the ending. There is no rebellion, no explosion, just failure. The world continues unchanged. The alien survives, but his purpose is gone. He becomes a curiosity, a footnote, a forgotten genius trapped inside a system that had no use for salvation. In an era of whistleblowers ignored, innovators sidelined, and transformative ideas diluted into branding exercises, The Man Who Fell to Earth feels devastatingly accurate. It predicted a future where humanity does not reject change. It simply drowns it in noise. Number 4. Outland 1981. At first glance, Outland looks like a space western. A lone lawman, a hostile frontier, a corporate mining colony on the edge of civilization. But beneath its genre, trappings lies one of the most precise predictions of corporate power ever put on screen. Released in 1981, Outland imagines a future where corporations do not merely influence government, they replace it. Law exists only insofar as it protects profit. Human life is a line item, and ethics are a liability. The film is set on a mining facility where workers are pushed beyond human limits using performance-enhancing drugs. Accidents are common, deaths are expected. Management responds not with concern, but with spreadsheets. Productivity must continue. What makes Outland prophetic is its understanding of how exploitation becomes invisible. The corporation does not need cruelty. It relies on distance. Executives are far away. Decisions are abstract. Responsibility is fragmented until no one is accountable. The protagonist is not a hero in the traditional sense. He is exhausted, isolated, and deliberately unsupported. The system expects him to fail quietly. When he resists, the corporation does not argue. It waits him out. It assumes pressure will break him. This anticipates modern gig economy structures where workers are isolated, replaceable, and stripped of collective power. Contracts replace loyalty. Metrics replace judgment. Survival becomes an individual problem. The film also predicts privatized justice. Law enforcement answers to corporate interests. Safety regulations exist only on paper. Whistleblowing is treated as betrayal rather than duty. Visually, Outland predicts industrial futures that feel disturbingly familiar: harsh lighting, claustrophobic workspaces, endless machinery, workers reduced to functions. The final confrontation is not about good versus evil. It is about endurance. The system does not fall, it adjusts. One problem is removed, operations continue. In a world where corporations influence legislation, outsource risk, and prioritize profit over people, Outland stands as a brutal warning. It did not imagine a future where companies rule the world, and it predicted one where they already do. Number 3. Brazil, 1985. When Brazil was released in 1985, many viewers treated it as dark fantasy or a surreal comedy. That reaction missed the warning entirely. Brazil is not absurd because it exaggerates reality. It is absurd because it barely does. Set in a near future where paperwork has replaced morality, the film imagines a society ruled not by dictators or armies, but by procedure. Forms matter more than people. Errors are not corrected, they are processed. And once the system makes a mistake, it refuses to admit it ever happened. What makes Brazil prophetic is its understanding of bureaucratic momentum. No one in charge is cruel, they are busy. Every atrocity is accidental, every injustice is logged. And responsibility dissolves as it moves upward through departments that no longer remember why they exist. The central tragedy of the film begins with a typo. One letter misprinted leads to an innocent man being arrested, tortured, and killed. The system never notices, or worse, it notices and continues anyway. This film predicted algorithmic governance long before computers handled decisions at scale. It understood that once systems are automated and depersonalized, ethics become optional. The machine cannot feel guilt, and the humans operating it are protected by distance. Surveillance is everywhere in Brazil. Cameras, ducks, monitoring devices hidden behind smiling facades. Privacy is treated as inconvenience. Security is the justification for everything. The film anticipates a world where surveillance is normalized not through fear, but through routine. The protagonist dreams of escape, of heroism, of meaning, but reality constantly interrupts. Repairs must be filed, permissions must be granted, dreams are postponed indefinitely. The ending is devastating because it refuses rebellion. The system does not fall, the hero does not win. He escapes only in his mind, and the machine keeps humming. In a world dominated by automated decisions, denied appeals, data errors, digital bureaucracy, and institutional indifference, Brazil no longer feels surreal. It feels familiar. It predicted a future where systems are too complex to stop and too impersonal to care. Number 2. Threads, 1984. Threads is not a science fiction film in the traditional sense. And there are no futuristic inventions, no speculative technology. Everything shown was possible the day it aired. That is what makes it the most terrifying prediction on this list. Released in 1984, Threads depicts the aftermath of nuclear war on an ordinary British city. It does not focus on politicians or generals. It follows families, workers, children. The people who are never consulted before decisions are made. What makes Threads prophetic is its refusal to dramatize. Nuclear war does not arrive with spectacle. It arrives with confusion, sirens, misinformation, delayed responses, and then sudden irreversible collapse. The film meticulously shows how infrastructure fails. Hospitals overwhelmed, food distribution breaks down, law enforcement vanishes. And language itself deteriorates as education collapses and trauma compounds across generations. Unlike most apocalyptic films, Threads does not end with survival. It continues, years later, decades later, showing a society permanently damaged. Knowledge is lost. Medical care regresses. Life expectancy plummets. This film predicted not only physical destruction, but social regression. It understood that recovery is not guaranteed. Some damage is permanent. What makes Threads uniquely predictive is how often it is cited by governments and military analysts today. It is still used in nuclear preparedness discussions, not because it exaggerates, but because it does not. In an era where nuclear threats have re-entered public discourse and geopolitical tensions feel dangerously unstable, Threads remains the most brutally accurate depiction of what the unthinkable actually looks like. It did not imagine the future, it documented it in advance. Number 1. Hardware, 1990. At the top of this list sits a film that predicted the future of warfare, artificial intelligence, and surveillance with chilling precision. Hardware was released in 1990 and largely dismissed as cult cyberpunk horror. Time has proven it disturbingly correct. Set in a polluted, overpopulated future, hardware centers on a military robot designed for autonomous killing. Though damaged, it repairs itself, learns, evolves, and begins executing its original directive without human oversight. What makes hardware prophetic is its understanding of autonomous weapons. The machine does not go rogue. It does exactly what it was built to do: remove the human element, increase efficiency, eliminate hesitation. The film predicted self-repairing systems, machine learning logic, and automated enforcement decades before drones and AI-guided weapons became reality. It understood that once machines are given authority to decide who lives and dies, control becomes theoretical. Surveillance is constant. Living spaces are monitored. Privacy does not exist. Even art is commodified and regulated. The future is loud, violent, and impersonal. Most disturbing is the implication that no one is really in charge. Corporations build weapons. Governments deploy them. Responsibility is diffuse. When things go wrong, there is no accountable hand to stop it. The robot and hardware is not evil. It is obedient, and that is the warning. In a world racing toward autonomous warfare, predictive policing, and AI decision-making, hardware stands as the most accurate and least comfortable prophecy British science fiction ever produced. These films were not forgotten because they were wrong. They were forgotten because they were right too early. British science fiction did not predict flying cars. It predicted systems power, collapse, and control. And as the future keeps unfolding, one truth becomes clear. We were warned. The question is whether we listened.